My name is Chelsea. I'm sorry that I got here late and missed introductions. I first came to Silver Lake as a camper when I was going in 5th grade. And I went as a camper until I was 17. I went to God School for 3 years with Liddell, so it's very meta to now be doing a Dean's Retreat workshop for one of my former students, but that's cool. I was a camp director for the YMCA for 4 years. I was on staff here for a couple of years. I also worked for a DCF program called the Wilderness School, so I worked with kids outside in lots of different ways. I am now on the Silver Lake board. Exciting. And I'm also the membership director at the Greater Waterbury YMCA, so I'm still working with people and kids of all ages, because adults are kids too sometimes. So we're going to talk a little bit this morning, and I hope to inspire a lot of conversation. This is not just me talking. I'm going to ask you to get up and move around a little bit, but we're going to start with some inspiration first. What a perfect place to do that.
That's so bad.
So what are your takeaways from this?
Be careful not to squash the lone nut.
Who are the lone nuts in your conference? Who else?
Some of the companies.
Yeah,
You can tell which ones.
the one who uses his or her Harry Potter voice for the whole. Who are your other lone nuts?
Sometimes the ones who are acting up.
You'll be in a very interesting place as a dean because you will see kids who already know how to lead, but maybe aren't stepping up. So there will be room for you to encourage people to step up, and there will be room for you to have to say, I need you to maybe stop lone nutting right now, and let someone else have a turn. And Silver Lake gives you a lot of resources in terms of allowing for leadership development and team building through the A team. And a lot of these leadership skills may show themselves when you're doing those activities that are specifically meant to develop leadership. And then you might see this while you're planning your worship or just making your waiter schedule, something like that. So leaving yourself open and your counselors open to seeing kids as leaders in different ways will definitely help bring more out of the experience for your campus. I'm sorry, I'm going to cough a lot. So, see, I'm using this new version of PowerPoint on my iPad that I don't really know how to use, so I think I'm probably just going to use this as my notes. But what I would like everyone to do is stand up, and we are going to actually do a leadership survey or questionnaire that comes from Knowles National Outdoor Leadership School, I think. And we are, so what I need you to imagine is that there's a line right here. Oh look, there really is one. And this line is a continuum. So on this side of the line is water. And on this side is wind. I'm going to describe water to you, and I'm going to describe wind to you. And I want you to put yourself on this continuum of water and wind and see where you think you belong. I would like you to avoid the middle, because that's the easy answer. Okay? So, this extreme far left, my far left anyway, is water. And I would like you to move to that side if this statement is something you relate with. I don't often voice strong opinions, particularly if I think I will cause hurt or be a waste of time. I put others before myself pretty consistently. I'm very flexible. You probably don't really know where I stand on issues or what I think about you unless you ask very directly. It's hard for me to state my own needs. So that's water. On this side is wind. I state my opinion and take stands easily. People know exactly what I think, feel, and want. I'm an open book, and you don't even have to read the words because I tell them to you, especially if you try to cross one of my lines. Fight or flight? Let's get real. I stay right here and tell it like it is. I don't have a problem saying my way or the highway if need be. So we have water over here and wind over here. And this is a continuum. So you can put yourself in the middle. Just near the middle. Okay. Yes. Oh, what did you just say, Debbie? Can you say that louder?
I say Drew's over there, and I'm over here.
Okay.
Over here.
Oh, you're
How timely.
I, for one, have, I think, a different personality at work versus in life. And depending on how your week is going, you might feel like you were at work or at play, and that can make your placement differ a little bit. I'm now going to ask you a second question. Actually, I'm going to give you 2 vegetables. I want you to think whether you are whether emotionally you are cool as a cucumber or a red hot tamale. So are you emotionally cool or emotionally hot? Are you reactive?
So where's cool?
So cool as a cucumber, you're going to go towards the back. Red hot tamales are going to come towards the fire.
Let's stay in line with
But
our water.
stay in line with your water and wind.
Now, tell me where we go again? Cool as
Cool as a cucumber, red hot tamales. So one option with this exercise, if you are doing it maybe in your church or the workplace, you could ask for feedback on your spots. And by ask for feedback, I mean you could tell people to move you into where they think you should be. That definitely lends to it could lend to feelings getting hurt. So you have to all agree to not take it personally, which is one of the hardest agreements you can make. But that's another layer of this exercise. So now that you are sort of in your 4 quadrants, I see 1 quadrant over here. So these are the cool as a cucumber, windy folks over here. These are the analysts and architects. Oh, I'm sorry. These are the cool cucumbers who are in the water. These are the red hot tamales who are in the water. And Liddell and I are the windy tamales. So, I sort of said it already, gave it away a little bit. This quadrant is what would be categorized as the drivers. So if you're over here, this one survey would categorize you as a driver. Over here are the analysts and architects. You're the thinkers and planners. Over here, you're the relationship masters. And over here are the spontaneous motivators. Okay. So, I'm going to read a couple statements for each of you. I'm sorry I don't have copies of this for you. I can email you this resource after the weekend is over because I don't have enough reliable Wi-Fi. So, we're going to start with drivers. And I want you, in your quadrants, I want you to discuss if you think this is accurate to you or not. And I want you to discuss how you could use an activity like this with your campers or your counselors. That's why we're here. So drivers emphasize action and directing functions. They're information and opinion givers. Decision making is easy for them. They're often the keeper of the vision in a group. They're great at taking stands and being directed, and usually not too shaken by critical feedback. There's more, but I'm going to give you a short version. Analysts and architects emphasize meaning and conceptual functions. They're information and opinion seekers. They're good at analysis and process observation. They prefer to make decisions based on facts, and they prefer as much information as possible before deciding. They can come out with totally off-the-wall solutions that work, and they translate feelings and experiences into ideas. Relationship masters emphasize the caring function. They are excellent at building and sustaining community. They work well on a team. They're great at building rapport, consensus, commitment, and seeking feedback. They support, praise, and are concerned for others. They display high regard for others' wishes, viewpoints, and actions. Spontaneous motivators emphasize emotional stimulation function, often voice their ideas and supply passion to follow those ideas. They are energizers. They're great at motivating people as they possess a sense of mission or vision. They're good at energetic dialogues with other group members. So, what I would like you to do is take 2 minutes in your group and discuss this, if you feel like you're in the right group or the wrong group, and what you think you add to a group as a leader. All right, everybody. Could we return to one circle? There are seats. So, what did you discover about yourself in this activity? Just a couple popcorn.
I discovered that I don't want to be a driver. I don't want to do that.
Okay.
I like where I'm at.
Okay.
I talked about how I was thinking really specifically about my role here at camp and like what it looks like here versus other places.
Okay.
And also how there's perspective in my life that helps me be the cucumber. So like I've worked with kids who have had really like big challenges, and so like I'm over here because I'm like, oh, the kids anything can go over here, like they totally handle.
Right.
Yeah, I was thinking about, what you were saying before, like I'm different in my work sphere than I am in my personal sphere. So I don't know, maybe if we did it again, like we can have a personal hat and a little more on that side. But I think it's valuable to recognize both sides of me.
When you're thinking about your conference, are you making it safe for young people to take risks and try out different spots on this leadership course?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, your conference especially, they probably get to try them a lot.
It's what we push for, it's what we try to get them to do. So.
How do you do that?
Well, this year, we were the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but ever since we've been volleyball, and we were the I in team, it's the same thing. We're just changing the name. It's about finding your place on a team or in the world, whatever it is, recognizing what your strengths are and how you can use them, find out how you as an individual can contribute, finding out how the team working together can contribute, trying on different roles. That's kind of what it is.
Do you want to join us?
No, I'm watching.
Okay.
I don't want to jump in.
Okay, you can. That's good. I think the great thing about camp is that and the great thing about Silver Lake is that we think like that here. This is a safe place to try different things, and that's how we're. So I hope that you can use this as one of those tools with your conference. There's another great similar test that would work well with kids that I've used before. It's called the True Colors Assessment. And it's sort of similar. It puts you either as a gold, a green, a blue, or a, I forget what the color is. Orange. And it's similar in terms of asking these questions, and it could could be a great 1 hour activity that you do with your conference. Get them talking about leadership and where they see themselves and where they want. In your conference, do you leave enough time for others to lead?
I tend to do very little reading in my conference. I'm very lucky that I have over 20 budget counselors, some of whom I've had since I started, and a couple of new ones that I've been able to handpick in. And I get to be in a wonderful position, mostly it's the wrong word, but overseer. I get to say, okay, this is your job, this is what you do really well, go get it. What are you comfortable with? That's what you're doing.
And where were you on the clock?
I was lying on the floor.
I noticed that, but
I
I wasn't
think
sure
you
what to
didn't you ignored because at first I try not to be polar.
Okay.
So I kind of ended up here.
Okay.
So I'm very passionate. I love what I do. I try to get as much of a personal contact with every kid, every counselor that I can get. But at the same time, it's not my experience. It's their experience. You set up, I have the kid out in Boston who runs the waterfront. He runs all the boats. He organizes the boats. He makes sure that because there are 3 positions in every boat, one kid doesn't dominate that position all the time. And the kid who loves to be a skipper, at some point is just going to have to hold the sheet and listen to somebody else. So that leader gets to listen, even though they really like to lead. So in that way, we kind of do push the kids into all 4 corners at some point in the summer.
Where else can you leave room for others to lead during your conference?
Well, when I was a counselor for Jeff Lukens at Waterworld, and he had us, the counselors, do morning watch every morning. So he just gave us a scripture and was like, "You go and do it." And that was one of the most life-changing experiences for me, as a counselor. And I think that's probably why I'm a dean now, is that it made me feel like I can do this. I'm confident in myself. I am trying to do more of that as a dean. I am very much, I like to control things, I like to be planned, I like to be organized. And sometimes it's a strength, but sometimes it's not. And so I'm trying to work on being able to let it go and trust that other people, there's a lot of really great ideas. And I think that we need to trust the kids too, that they have a lot of great ideas, and that sometimes program time doesn't need to be so structured. It's just a conversation starter. And I was talking with my dad about it, how in school we have this thing called wait time, because a lot of times you'll plan this great thing and you think it's going to take them an hour, and they'll think they're done with the conversation after 10 minutes. But you have to just let them sit in that silence, and then eventually things start coming. So it's just being patient and letting that awkwardness be there, but eventually great things come out of it.
We work with 5th and 6th graders in my conference, and so giving them any opportunities within the programming, and also I'll specifically mention worship plan, is a place where they haven't necessarily gotten a chance to inject themselves and work together in groups and plan something. And so we try to create spaces for that to happen, so we can try out set up functions. This is how I get my voice in, this is how I work collaborate with somebody else who does something like this.
We have 2 layers in some ways at this point, we have 2 layers of counselors, age-wise, but it doesn't necessarily mean experience-wise, so it's a very interesting kind of mix. We might have some young counselors who have been through 2 synchrays or a bachelor, so they kind of know the process, and then we have some older counselors who maybe always wanted to be a part of syncray. So I think part of the reason I was in this quadrant is because I'm becoming more conscious about how to, back off myself and create space for them to find their leadership ways. Because we've been through several, teams of counselors, so it's really fun and interesting when it's them finding where they fit in here to make it happen.
One of the reasons that I sort of changed my mind about what I wanted to do during this workshop is that I wanted us to not only think about how we are being accountable for our leadership style, but I wanted you to think critically about where you are. And it sounds like most of you are already there. And that's why we're here. Obviously, we don't have any first-time deans in this group because we were scheduled at the same time as that. But I would definitely encourage you to sit down if you have a co-dean or with your counselor team and have this same conversation. Talk about opportunities that you're going to give other people during your conference. Whether you are going to plan like to have morning watch done by counselors, that's great. If you are going to just plan the first 2 days of your conference and then see where it goes. I mean, don't tell Tim that I said this, but that's leadership development. Absolutely.
One of the things that I've done the last 2 years with Dean and God's Girls was really just we had silent girls for Sunday and Monday, and we had to do thumbs up until thumbs down because they actually would not speak about anything. So then we just stopped talking and just sat and put on music and listened. And eventually, the things that started to come out, by the end of the week, we couldn't get them to stop talking. But it was they were such polar experiences because Sunday, Friday, Saturday, they won't stop, and the development that you see between them throughout the week was really awesome.
So you purposely didn't want them to talk, or they weren't
They were
talking?
not speaking.
Okay. And
So
this is what age?
High school girls.
Yeah.
But we had ideas for programming, like in the framework, like, oh, well, if this is kind of where they're at, we'll throw this in. But if it happened, it happened. If it didn't, we had it in our back pocket and kind of let them organically figure out where they wanted to go with the week and what their conversations with us.
I am co-deaning with Ken Peterson this summer, and we have both deans, but never with someone else. So I asked him this week, what do you need from me? Or what do you need for yourself to have a successful week? And that's a really important question to ask because you may be working with someone who you're married to and you probably know what they need. And you may be working with someone who you only see a few times a year for this purpose. And it's really good to check in about those things. Do they need to know that there's a plan for every activity time, or do you have backup plans upon backup plans, and do you leave time for that independent growth in your conference? I would recommend that you leave time, but I think we are all very tempted to plan every minute. Right, exactly. And go ahead.
Sorry.
Hang on, it's almost there. You're saying that, about checking in with your dean to see what they need to make it a successful week. I would go ahead and say that the first night with your whole conference
Absolutely.
is the same exact thing. With your covenant building and really be like, this is your week. It's our week, but it's your week also what you need so that they can give voice to what, so that later in the week if they're having a conflict or something, they can actually name that and hopefully speak up and that we can recognize those things as well.
And I think, too, just with your, most of us do have co-deans because it really is the way to go. This is the first year in a decade that Drew and I are both actual deans. We don't have our kids with us at all this year. They're both in conferences. So parent dean thing all the time. So yeah, I think it's going to be a little different. I'm not sure what it's going to look like. We'll see.
Part of my need for the staff that I have, the ability to release a lot of stuff is I'm solo. The first 2 years I had done it with Cheryl, and it was worked great, but she last summer needed a summer to clear her head, get some other things done, and unfortunately our week back right up on our church's green field. So I ended up going solo last year, and I'm doing it again this year. But it really changed dealing. It was unfortunately less hands-on with the kids and more structural, make sure this is there and that is there, and
Well, actually,
that's
I
really
would
changed it.
sort of reiterate that at the beginning, when I said the deans are the one nut, that part about the counselors are what makes the conference kind of going right or not. I mean, because if the counselor's having a good time, the kids are having a good time. I mean, if everybody's having fun, if one counselor is miserable, or if you're spending all that time trying to help that counselor get in the swing here, sharing the leadership, finding the things that people want to do, and really remembering that people came to be a counselor not to be told what to do and how to enjoy each other, because they want to participate and they have something to bring to the table. And they may not know what that is, but so I like that as an exercise just for our counselors and to get ourselves, know what and treat people as equal. I mean, okay, you have experience as a dean, but your counselors, no conference. It's just kind of,
One of the things that John and I have been doing in God Show lately is when the kids first arrived, when we were on the picnic tables and they're lining up to check in, we kind of interview them in a way. We just say, what is your experience in musical theater? And then we just ask them, have you danced? Do you sing? Have you written? What do you like to do? And they're so eager and most of them and excited to be here that they just blurt out all this stuff and we're we're making notes. So then during that time when we need, say, a dance to be formed, I'll say, Missy, Sam, John, you're dancers, go work on this, be the choreographers. And they're like, what? And then it's like that opportunity is there for them, and they don't have an out. I don't give them an out, You gotta do it. It is. Instead of saying, who wants to be the choreographer? But when you say, you have this skill, now's your opportunity. And it's really been nice to see that percolate.
So I have a list of ideas that I wanted to make sure that we shared, and that was absolutely one of them. So make sure that you are spending more time listening to your counselors and making sure that you are listening to understand rather than to respond. And it's really important that, for the example that Liddell just gave, when they're walking in and saying, oh, I'm a dancer, you don't say right away, okay, well, I would like you to choreograph. You wait for that time. You keep that little factoid. During my counselor trainings here and at my own Y camps, I have recommended that staff keep camper notes. And even if it's just jotting down a few words about what they like, and making sure that they have daily check-ins. Because you can use that for information. When you need someone to step up, you can say, hey, I noticed that you were talking about how important your church is, and we really need someone to help with our worship service. Would you please be responsible for this, that, or the other thing? And that empowers them in a way that just meant to volunteer may not. So we are actually kind of running out of time, which I'm not surprised about. But I wanted to just run through a few specific ones that you probably know, but maybe we can talk more about it. When you are asking for help and asking for campers or counselors to step up, remember to ask them open-ended questions. So avoid yes or no, because you want to be able to get more of that information. So instead of asking, are you a dancer, you might ask, just like the dancer, what is your experience? What are your favorite things to do? Make sure that silence is okay. I know that it's really tempting when you're leading a discussion and no one's answering anything, just to talk yourself and to sort of fill the awkward time with your own thoughts. Especially with teenagers, it's really important to let them think. I always recommend giving out Post-it notes or small pieces of paper, and when you're having big discussions or even smaller discussions, giving kids the time to write down an answer or think about an answer before expecting that answer to be out loud. So, although it may not be the most sustainable, as long as the paper ends up in this. It can lend itself to more productive conversation and more people stepping up.
I've also found it helps, I've also found it helps if you've got that kid, it's this kid all the time, every time, even if they don't have anything to say. So hold that kid off a little bit.
Right.
Nobody gets the answer for 30 seconds.
Right.
To let kids formulate so that first thought that comes out doesn't overwhelm the whole process.
Exactly.
And it gives the kid the opportunity, who's the introvert and is terrified to raise their hand, to have their voice be heard.
I've also had them like turn and talk, so they're only having to talk to like one person instead of everyone else. And then when we share out, I ask them to share what their partner said, so they are not sharing their own whatever. I mean, not like personal things, but depending on the discussion. But they share what their partner said, so they don't feel like it's their words.
Absolutely. When you are having a discussion, make sure that you are doing what a team does. So I was in a team this one staff, and they pre-brief, so they talk about the question. Then they brief. They tell you the question, and then they debrief. They talk about the answers. And it's really important that that's when that active listening comes in. So make sure that you're encouraging your counselors to do that as well as other campers.
So, can you go through what are the steps? Again, what do they mean?
Pre-brief.
Yeah.
So you're talking about what you're going to do. And then you brief them. So you give the actual instructions. And then you debrief. So you talk about the discussion and what the answer was. And you probably already do this, but just thinking about being a little bit more deliberate will set more of your campers up for success. I think especially when you're having these big conversations and talking about leadership development, talking about spiritual development, it's important to offer not only verbal instructions, but instructions in other ways, and to get those non-verbal or non-audible learners to think about the questions too. So you ask for answers in different ways, and you ask questions in different ways. Writing out the questions, listening to a song and reacting, just leaving room for multiple intelligences. You already do that with all of your public. It's good for the rest of us to think about that too. So, I think that my mission for you moving forward would be to think with your co-deans and with your counselors what you want to ask your campers, what your big questions will be. So the topic of my conference is living your mission. So I was trying 10 questions. Okay, what's your mission? And how do you live your mission now? And it's really important to slow down and break those questions up a little bit. I know that we've run out of time for the most part, but I think definitely strengthen your conference if you sit down and sort of tease out the questions that you're planning on asking and break them down into smaller questions so it's less intimidating then. What do you want to be when you grow up? What's important to you? What do you like to do? Breaking those big questions down into smaller things. Another great idea for leadership development in your conference, and something that